What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube channel at Rich Q on X as well, and IG, Rich Q on Q, from our wonderful friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clements Bridge Road. Listen, holidays right around the corner. They will take whatever you guys have, and I'm telling you right now, 7 days a week, you give them a call. We'll give out the number and the contact information as we do every day and during the week. Gift cards, we know we love them. You can get some store credit. Walk in right now. Let's just say you got something that's valued at $50. Tell them that you heard it right here on BYP. You want that store credit. They're going to throw an additional 30% on top of that. So I'm telling you right now, it's a great deal. They got the sweatshirts, the tees, they got the old school unis as well. The golf equipment is more. I mean, listen, some people are going to go down to Florida when it gets a little cold, swing in there and get some clubs as well. Check them out online. Just go to playitagainsports.com, put in location, New Jersey as well. And our good friend wearing the potential MVP of the NFL, Jared Goff jersey. That, of course, is the prop, Professor Shine. He's fired up. He's excited. What's going on, brother? How are you?
Yeah, how you doing? It's just this is more wishful thinking now than it is reality. As some unknown reason, except that he hasn't played as good as Brock Purdy.
That's
He's going from 42-1 to 49-1 for MVP. So if history's any indication, Goff's not going to win. But he is in the top 10 in EPA, and I think he's ninth. He hasn't played terrible. I still think it's going to come down to New Year's Eve night in Dallas.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
If he plays, phenomenally and Detroit wins, who'll be in the run? I still don't think he's going to win. There's probably 4 or 5 things that have to happen. But when you talk about 4 or 5 things happening for a result to occur, that's kind of what happened to Florida State and how they didn't make the Final Four. I mean, you think about what had to happen for them. Alabama to complete a 4th in a million.
Yeah.
Alabama then had to turn around and beat Georgia,
which they did.
Washington had to beat Oregon,
which they did.
I think I'm missing one other scenario.
Well, you got one loss, Texas, and then you got Michigan.
But if Alabama beats Auburn, well, if they lose to Auburn and then beat Georgia, they might not even have nobody in the SEC. As crazy as that is, you might have to put FSU in over Georgia. That entire thing, it's going to create a lot of craziness. I'm not sure how you thought about it. I tweeted out the beginning, and then Stephen A. Smith, I don't know if you saw that, he stole mine. He must be following me. I don't know. But I said the minute after FSU beat, the minute after Plummer that took a 90-yard sack on a line of 4th down, he's not throwing a ball up in the air. I tweeted, said, FSU's not making this Final Four because of TCU. Right. They don't want to risk having a championship game when the team's getting 14 or 14, 15,
blown out.
They lose 9 million to nothing. So I had a lot of people saying, well, they beat Michigan that game. I said, yeah, but all the good they had out of beating Michigan's upset was blown away by the world watching. And like, what the hell is this? You can't have TCU in this championship, and they don't even want the facade of having FSU there. So that hurt them. But FSU would have been in if those other scenarios had happened. If you go back as far as we do, I mentioned FSU shouldn't have been in that 2000 championship game that Stoops won against Oklahoma in Miami, one of the best teams ever. They had beaten Florida State. They lost the first game of the year to Washington by a touchdown. They win a close game against FSU. They house everybody else. There's like 15 pros on that team. And they stuck it to the Canes and put FSU in that championship game. Now, that's really going back.
Right.
But that's what happens when you have 40 years of scenarios. You don't think of one thing as being too crazy and the other. And I make that as a comparison to everything that would have to happen for Goff to win MVP. You have to have San Fran not only not get the top seed, you have to have Purdy have a bad game, or like we saw last night, or get hurt.
Crazy
I
year
mean,
for quarterback.
hurt. He's one nick of his hand on someone's face mask from being out of the MVP and out of the conversation. So that could happen. The resurgent Rams, remember the Rams will play at San Fran the last game of the year. One game after San Fran has to go into Washington. And you say, oh, well, Shine, who cares? Who cares about going to Washington? Nobody wants to go to Washington, week 16, 17, whatever it is, in December to play anybody.
No.
And one game after they host the Ravens on a Saturday night. So, point being is, with this much uncertainty, Purdy at 3-1 is a terrible bet. If you're going to bet Purdy, bet it 3 weeks ago when we were talking about it. And if you look now, Dak is even the second favorite. And Dak has to play Miami still. They got to play the Eagles still. They got to play Buffalo still, and then they got the home game against the Lions. And like Dak is, Dak's not against throwing 3 interceptions against bad teams. So that's with Goff is still in the running. He's not going to win. But it's really as close to an MVP race as ever. It's probably going to go to whoever finishes the top seed.
I agree.
And if Miami finishes the top seed, they're going to look at Tua. If somehow Detroit can sneak in there, they'll look at Goff. It's going to be tough. He dropped too far down. I figure at this point I had a shot. If he was 15-1, I have no shot. But my Detroit is live.
Will they look at Hurts if the Eagles get the top seed, even though coming off an performance?
If he bounces back, here's the interesting thing: the Eagles could lose. I don't think this is going to happen. I was going to give you a crazy scenario of losing like 30-7 or something, and they pull Hurts in the second half or something like that. If that happens, they still can win the East.
Yeah,
he just beat Seattle, beat the Giants twice. If they win, they'll still win because Dallas still has to play the teams I just mentioned. So it's not a be-all, end-all for the Eagles here. So if Hurts plays just okay, or let's say they lose 34-27, and then he goes up to Seattle and runs a ball in late, has 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, and then he coasts against Tommy Cutlets and the gang, he beats them, and now you got Hurts again. Yeah. So Hurts is still live. The recency bias it blows my mind. But in a year like this, where literally anything could happen, I put on Twitter a poll of which starting quarterback is going to get hurt next, and it was 1, 2, 3, 4. It was Lamar Jackson. It was Hurts. It was Tua, and then I had fill in the blank, and I had a couple people throw in Lawrence. And it just shows you anybody can get hurt. This week of that quarterback matchups is what the NFL was afraid of, and what we talked about a month ago.
Yeah. You want competitive games. You don't want these backups. It's just been a bad year for quarterbacks, but then you also look at, this is why they're throwing flags left and right. Case in point, you go to that Kansas City Green Bay game. By rule, by definition, you're going to throw the flag a little ticky-tack out of bounds on Mahomes. Sure, because it's Mahomes' letter of the law. Is it roughing the passer? Or I should say unnecessary roughness? I don't think so. But when you need to throw the flag late in the game on a blatant PI, you don't. Now, all of a sudden, everyone's coming out talking about, you can go back to the Miami games against the Eagles or the Buffalo game. I was going back and forth with my buddies this weekend with the San Fran and the Eagles game. I mean, it is now so subjective. It really does get to the point where it totally disrupts the telecast, totally disrupts the broadcast. And if you're betting on some of these games and you're thinking about betting, even if you're a novice or amateur bettor and just want to enjoy it, you really have to kind of think twice sometimes, because you're starting to say to yourself, these games are being determined by flags that are being thrown and by calls that are not being made.
I mean, Great points. My take on it is if a guy's running toward the sidelines, if I'm a defensive coordinator, let him run to the sideline. The first time somebody fakes like they're going to the sidelines and tries to get a couple extra yards, I'm going to show him Peyton everybody. I'm going to say, blast the dude.
Yeah.
And it sucks, but I'm going to say, blast him. If you're going to get the penalty, make it count.
Yep.
And then I'm going to say to the opposing coach, we're handing you the sidelines. Don't make a jerk off out of me by trying to, and I tell Mahomes too.
Yeah.
And I would tell the press. I would tell Pickett. Remember, Pickens did it in a bowl game.
Yeah, he pretended to fake slide.
We acted he was going to get there. Listen, if that happens, I bring my whole team over. I'm like, kill this guy.
Yeah.
Kill him. Kill him. I don't care. I don't care if he's laying on the ground. Blast him. Do not ruin. We're offering you this so you don't get hurt.
Right.
Don't make an idiot out of us. Also, when did this narrative come? You can't get a pass interference on a Hail Mary. This isn't. First of all, get Hail Mary out of Hail Mary is something throws up. They're from their own 30 or whatever. You're inside the 50. To me, it ain't a Hail Mary.
No, it's just a long pass.
It's a long pass. You can't push guys. Where is this bullshit? It's not a scrum. If it's a scrum, I don't even like if it's a scrum and guys are pulling people down. Like, no. Play the ball just like it was different. If it bounces up in the air and someone catches it, too big. Defensively, you should be maybe have a defensive guy looking for it. You can't blatantly push the guy because you know what that is? That's circumventing the wink and a point of, okay, we're going to give you guys some leeway on defense to touch each other. Pushing a guy is taking advantage. You know what it is? You give a guy, you give anybody in this league an inch, they take 75 yards, and that's what that is. They should have threw a flag on Spice. Now, with that being said, Kansas City's gotten enough flags. Remember the Vikings game? The guy's taking his helmet off.
100%.
All that. So nobody's going to cry.
Yeah.
For
it's
Kansas City.
No, of course not. But
this has got to get shored up for the end of the year for the playoff.
Yeah, really but to your point, look at the way they were calling the flags or weren't calling the flags, but then started to call the flags late in Buffalo and Philly. If no one talks about this, and I know it's revisionist history, Monday morning quarterback a couple of weeks later, but McDermott calls a timeout to ice Elliott, not on a potential game-winning field goal, but a potential game-tying field goal. So he burns a timeout. They have 20 seconds, now only one timeout. If he has two, you're calling it differently. But in a game like that, if I'm Allen, I just chucked the ball up because the way they were starting to throw the flag, if anything, sell it. Sell it, win the Academy Award and get the call. I'm wondering if, though, some of these refs and some of these officials, they're so influenced by the oohs and the ahs and the moans and the screams and the boos of the crowd. I'm seeing flags come in. I feel as though flags are coming in 10 seconds after the play.
Well, this just leads into, a lot of what you're going to hear. Like, oh, the games are fixed and the refs don't. And it's just, you hear it, especially in our area. It drives me crazy. And what they don't understand is people are more incompetent than they are on the take. Or you couldn't rig a game. You couldn't rig a high school game. Somebody would screw it up.
Yeah.
But people tend to think, these guys are really good at their job. They're just bad officiating. It's just bad. The rule book is just too complicated. You almost need an extra guy just to sit back and watch the game and interpret everything. That's not right. That's wrong. Each team runs an average of 75 plays, on average. So say there's 140, 150, 155 plays, not counting special teams a game. So they're not messing up 15 of them. It's almost like a theft. Retail theft. You start to pay attention if your shrink is 10%. You don't pay attention if it's 2 or 3.
Yeah.
We're getting about 3% of the calls being bad. Now, the lousy part is if you get 4 bad calls in a
They're
game,
game
you
changing.
really hope they're 2-2. You
But they're
hope it
not.
falls evenly incompetent for both
I,
sides.
I, I,
But God forbid if it goes 4 one way, like the Bills Eagles games. I get in these Twitter arguments with people, and I'm trying to be biased here. But when you have triple the penalty yards and triple the penalties on one team, the Bills are a sloppy team. This isn't cumulative. Each game's independent of their own. They're a sloppy team. They didn't, they're not telling Darius Slow's grabbing people. I said that that's the Enrico Palazzo defense, where he was, he's feeling up every wide receiver.
Great seeing Leslie Nielsen, sure, naked gun.
It's just like they're grabbing a guy, and it goes back to the Belichick years when they played the Colts, and the Colts were unstoppable. And they're like, how do you stop the Colts? I'll tell you how you stop the Colts. Just grab Marvin Harrison every time he's on time until they throw a flag, until they throw 4 flags. It's difficult for them to throw all of them because remember that one game, snowing, they're looking at that, whatever it is, they're trying to, it just made sense. Belichick was brilliant at looking at the numbers and saying, we get 2 of those calls our way. And this leads into my overall point is the rule book is too complicated. They still can't figure out what a catch is.
Think about this. I break the plane, right? But the ball's falling out, but I kind of go like that. It's a touchdown. But yet I catch it like this, but I'm moving around. They're saying it's not a touchdown. Like, it's so subjective, but I do. While we're talking real quick, I have to ask you.
Sure.
I tweeted this out and I saw you retweet it as well. The whole situation with the Eagles and security and Big Dom and all this nonsense. How do you go on TV on post game in Philadelphia in the Eagles' backyard and sit there? And if you're Barrett Brooks, who played the game at a high level, and I'm not trying to pile on him, but the fact that you're sitting there saying this guy is part of the organization, he had no business jawing with a player at all. And then it's almost as though we're condemning
it.
He touched him. He touched him first.
How are you touching the opposing player? Are you kidding? His back should be at the game. He should be looking at the fans. Did you see
like every other security guy?
Yeah, did you see the UCLA game? I tweeted it out where the kid ran out of the stands dressed as the ref, and he grabbed the ball. For like 3 seconds, people thought he was the ref. It's hysterical. That's what somebody can run out of the stands, especially in Philly. You run out of the stands and tackle Sirianni. I don't know who they can do anything.
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
But you know what I mean? That's what his job is. It's just Brooks's comment is that's a business decision comment.
That's a horrible.
He wants to do it. If he has to sit in front of Lurie and the brass, that they can say, hey, you know what? We want you to come in and we're going to give you X amount of money. We're going to get you off the Comcast minimum wage slab, and we're going to throw you, a bone. That's what that is. You can't. I don't even watch that crap anymore. These guys.
It's almost as bad as former radio host in New York going on the air and basically saying, "Hey, this is what I got from Robert Saleh."
Of all the people in the FAN, why would Saleh be friends with Benigno? Be friends with Craig Carton. Carton might actually say, you know what? As insane as Carton is, they might say, as ethically challenged as Carton is, he might say, you know what? I draw the line.
He's got his he's got his FS1 gig right now. But yeah, to your point.
But now he's off. But he's still in the area. I could see being friends with him. And my point is that Carton might say, you know what? That's off the record.
But here, you know what? That's almost a fireable offense if you're the head coach. I agree. You should not. And listen, it's the line in Goodfellas, man. 2 rules in life: you kept your mouth shut and you never ratted.
Don't rattle your friends. I told you before. There's a few people that this is why I don't want to go too deep into it, but there's people I'm friends with that have worked in this league, and years ago they sent me messages and I said, listen, don't tell me anything more because I'm going to tell other people. I'm like, well, just letting you know, whatever. And then, that contact dries up.
I mean, that's a, and then you get Zach Wilson not wanting to come out.
So one point being is that was my mistake. But I said before, hey, is this okay? I can send it out. Am I being your aide? You want this out?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because sometimes people want this out, and that goes on all the time.
Well, you say it to people where you say it because you're okay with them. But something like this, I mean, I'm going back and forth.
I'll go into detail. It was during the Belichick, what do you call it? Spygate.
Spygate.
Not Spygate. Was that what it was? Spygate? Where he was videoing everybody.
Yeah.
So it was during that time. Rich, I'm going to tell you right now, there's GMs currently in the NFL who know exactly what happened. Had nothing to do with the Patriots. They were opponents of the Patriots. They know exactly what happened. The NFL league office brought these guys in. Tell me what you know. Let them go. And that my follow-up was, what happened after that? They were like, nothing. What are you going to do? Take the Patriots Super Bowls away? It kills the league. They made decisions. Goodell made decisions for the league. You can't take the trophies away from the Patriots. It hurts the league. There's a good analogy. It goes all the way to the Sixers tanking and why, what's his name, doesn't have a job in the NBA anymore.
Sam Hinkie.
They blackballed Hinkie. And some people, regardless if you agree with Hinkie or not, Hinkie came up with the thing and said, listen, people have talked about it, but there's no difference in if you finish 1-80 or if you finish 25-60 or 25-57. So I'm going to finish 1-80. Now it's a crappy way to do it, but he forced them to change the league. But what he didn't anticipate is when they looked at the overall numbers, he was not just hurting the 76ers. He was hurting the NBA. Mm-hmm. So the NBA told him, you do something about Hinkie or we will do something.
Well,
and I know this isn't speculation. I know this.
Yeah.
100%.
Because you have 10 teams that are losing games like that. What's happening? Fans aren't going. They're not spending money on tickets, concessions, merchandise, beer, going to the stadium. So the NBA, the league is losing revenue. Right.
This one team is not losing on purpose. You're putting out an inferior product that cannot compete. And Hinkie never anticipated that. And fans didn't anticipate that. And, this goes back to the spy. Listen, Deflategate's because they couldn't punish the Patriots enough with Spygate. That's all that is. And then this goes to, okay, who's telling people this or who's leaking stuff like this to me? Salah should not be talking to anybody.
Nope.
I would have a little bit of empathy for Salah, like he went to high school with Benigno or something. You know what I mean? Like, well, they know each other, they talk. Like, remember Francesa and Parcells had that relationship,
and then it went
but guess what? Francesa never leaked anything that Parcells told him. He told him tons of stuff about what he thought about it. The one thing Francesa put out was, he said, Parcells, the year after he resigned after the second Super Bowl, and they made Ray Handley the head coach, he was in a tough spot because he couldn't criticize Handley. He was his buddy. And, you can't put a guy, you could do it now, but back then you couldn't put a guy on a thing and be like, hey, what do you think about, now they just ignore it. And he would be like Mike Lombardi does. He hammers everybody, but anybody that's associated with his kids and Vic Fangio. You know what I mean? They pick their spot and then nobody calls them on it. So you had this kind of this hypocrisy. But I would fire Salah, and even before this. Now he's not going to get fired, but Hackett is. I think it's a done deal that Hackett's going to get.
But hold on a second. If Hackett gets fired, then you got the GM, which is Aaron Rodgers, not Joe Douglas. Aaron Rodgers is going to sit there and say, well, you just fired my guy. You brought me over. I came over.
Is that his guy? Is that the reason he went to the Jets? I would talk to Rodgers about that. You really need this guy?
I think he went to the Jets twofold. I think he went somewhere where he realized he was going to have no one push him for the starting job. at this stage of his career. He had no threat whatsoever. That's probably one of the reasons they also weren't going to make a trade for a guy like Kirk Cousins or so, but that's besides the point. But he only went over because of Hackett. That was the selling point. So if right now, what they need to do is just clean house.
I give Rodgers a little bit of leeway because Rodgers was stuck with, especially when he first got in the league, he was stuck with McCarthy's big ego. And when they started to win, McCarthy was taking all the credit, the offensive credit. They hindered Rodgers. So Rodgers thought he never had enough credit. And winnable games, Rodgers took the brunt for it. It was McCarthy's fault.
Well, then the same breath, I can sit there.
The game in Seattle in the NFC Championship.
Yeah.
So there was a lot. I get that Rodgers later in his career is like, you know what? I want to work with my friends. So maybe you're right that maybe they won't fire Hackett. But I think someone has to go down.
I think it's the head coach has to go. The head coach has to go, and they ruined it.
Well, if he doesn't, it's going to be like a deal like you see a lot. One of these guys has to go. You can't be 4-13 or 5-12 because Rodgers is worth 8 wins. I mean, so when you tell me the total, their overall under in wins was 9.5.
9.5.
The market was probably right. They would be sitting around 10-7, 9-8 with Rodgers. So you're going to be 5-13 without him? That's pretty bad.
Yeah, but also listen, Hackett and Saleh both need to go because maybe it isn't just a quarterback because their offense is that bad. But now you have the quarterback coming out, and I think what happened was that Rodgers called Zach Wilson and said, "Yo, man, you're trying to salvage your career. I don't care if you're, the speculation, maybe the agents called the Jets and said, we don't want this kid going out there and getting hurt, ruin his chances of free agency." That gets back. Rodgers calls him up and he turns around and says, "Yo, you got to play, man. You got to go out there and suck it up, show him what you can do." I don't care if Zach Wilson, the next 3 games, throws for 500 yards every game. He is not an NFL quarterback. Stop being fooled by this. It's just, I mean, I'm leaning the Jets the rest of the way. I just think they're a shot team. I just think they're done.
Well, this goes into something I said in October to get toward the end of the year. Guys, the veterans will pull, my hamstring, that kind of thing.
Business.
The younger guys who are still under that first 3-4 year contract, they're going to be playing for real. Of course,
because they're on film.
People watching film and saying, "Hey,
100%.
Who the hell are you? You dogged it when your team started."
And this is why I said the Giants won't tank. This is exactly why I kept saying they won't tank, because you got young guys that need to put it on.
Sure. All you got to do is, I give people a tip if they're watching this, look at the roster. And if you have a lot of guys that are still under their first contract, you get that after if you're out of your rookie contract, you get paid.
Yeah.
You're in line to get paid. You don't want anybody to go, "You know what? We can't pay that guy. Look how he played when the team, was out of it." So you have guys playing for jobs. I get Wilson's camp of thinking, I don't want anything to happen because other teams are going to be looking at it. I'm going to disagree with you just a little bit that, Wilson might not be a starting quarterback in this league, but it's a position nobody can fill. Look at this league. Look who's starting. Is Zach Wilson potentially better than Joe Flacco at 400 years old?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Who I heard through the grapevine a couple years ago when he was third string at the Jets, that he was happy collecting money.
Of course.
Hoping he doesn't even play. Right. I don't want to say it, but guess what? I just said it. I don't care. Supposedly he was like, "Hey, how am I turning down $1 million to hang out? I love the guys. I like these dudes." Now, that doesn't mean people can't change. You go, "You know what? I got an opportunity. Look at this league. I could play it on 41 maybe. Maybe I could really
right.
Maybe I get on the that changes awfully quickly." I mean, he actually looked decent
He didn't look bad.
He didn't look that big. You put him behind a good line, he might be a good back. So with that being said, with the entire league, you're going to tell me Zach Wilson can't be a backup somewhere?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Maybe.
But that's still all more
I
the
think
reason to play.
Is he going to be elite? Is he going to be elite?
No. No.
No. Is he going to be? Can he make more money in this league?
Of course. But that's the reason to play. That's the reason to want to
That
play.
is. But I think if he plays, no matter what happens, he can get a job somewhere else. Whoa, what's the name? His backer from last year is what? He's in Miami.
Mike White.
And guess what? He's another guy that's a breath away from playing on that team. People don't, Tua can get hurt. Any of these guys I think it's less of a shot that, let's say, Hurts gets hurt. I just think he's a stronger guy. But if somebody lands wrong on him, it can happen. Yeah. Tua's a little bit more fragile, and White could be on that team. That's how close it is.
100%.
From these guys getting in and maybe playing well and then getting life-changing money.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a contract to be a main guy. I think you really, with the way the cap is, the way the league is, and as long as I've been watching this crap, I remember in the early 90s, Buddy Ryan wanted to sign Phil Simms, and they had that weird exemption where they couldn't. It was capped what you could sign a veteran for.
Yep.
It was like $1.5 million or some crap.
That's when he was in Arizona. That's when he was.
Yeah, and Simms, it was when he was in Arizona, and Simms was going to make like $2 million as being an announcer. And remember, the story at the time is that he agonized over because you want to play in the league until you're. And remember,
he didn't like how the Giants unceremoniously he had to retire. He didn't.
He got injured a lot when he was in his 20s. I get it, but the league kind of screwed him. And you remember who took the money and went and played over there was Burline.
That's right.
Burline played for Arizona, and Burline was decent. He wasn't Simms. Simms in his best is better than Burline, but so it makes you think. I think somebody else got stuck in that too. It might have been ripping. There was a couple people that might have been Esiason.
He did because he went from the Jets back over to
Arizona. And remember, he had back-to-back games, 500 yards.
500 yards.
But he was on a one-year contract. I don't know the exact date, but I remember there was this weird exemption that they had to change. I go all the way back to that time to now. You're like, wow, these guys you can give them big money. You can move the cap around. You're going to get hit with dead cap space money. But it leads me to this scenario, this point. The point is, how do you build a team that can have 2 or 3 years staying power? And of course, you have to get a little bit lucky, but lucky in the sense of what San Fran is doing. They're not paying Purdy any money. What's Purdy get? He's not a first or second or third round pick. This is why I thought that Carolina, now it would be hard to tell a guy worth $20 billion, listen, dump the first round pick, let's get a bunch of linemen and let's let our scouting staff do their job, find a guy in the third, fourth, or sixth round. Maybe we get lucky, and then you don't have to pay that guy for 4 years. It's how Seattle made out. Remember, Seattle signed the backup Flynn, who was the heir apparent. They threw all the money at him, and here comes midget Russell Wilson, beats him out in camp, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is great. We don't have to pay this guy for 4 years."
Yep.
And look at now we can pay Cam Chancellor. Yep. Now we can pay this guy, that guy. And I think if I'm a GM of a team, that's how I'm building the team. The Eagles got 3 years at Jalen Hurts before they had to give him big money. And they made the Super Bowl with him basically under.
That's why you don't always have to draft a quarterback in the first.
What it is it's almost teams feel they have to do it for marketing purposes. So they stretch. Right. Where I think I told you before, I went back 40 years, and my criteria was if you were a consistent starter in the NFL. That was my criteria of being good. So consistent starter of say like 3-4 years. Say 4 years is the cutoff. And if you were picked in the top 15 picks,
Okay.
That's good. Of course, you don't want to, you don't want to compare a Tony Baselli to a Tony Mandarich, but Tony Mandarich was not the bust people thought he was. Tony Mandarich, when he left Green Bay, he started for the Colts for 3 years for Manning.
Yeah.
And so was he a bust at the second pick? Maybe, but I threw him in as like, an asterisk of being serviceable. Look at all the other guys. And then compare that to the quarterbacks have been drafted in the first 15 picks. And it's triple. Yeah. So it just it's not a huge sample. It's only 40 years or whatever. But it makes sense. You have more of a shot of getting a good lineman and building the line.
And a quarterback.
And then let your scout. Why do you pay a scouting staff? Me and you could pick the first round for any team in this draft. Kuiper. Who cares? Who cares about me and you? Hire Kuiper. Give him some hairspray. And a $10,000 suit, he'll pick your first 2 rounds. But let your scouts do their job.
Yeah.
Go get 4th, 5th, 6th round quarterback. Purdy's the last guy in the draft, and he might be the MVP. That's all you need to know. Now, of course, Stroud is great. Yeah. He's going to be great. But we're only through a few games here. They had to pay him a lot of money, which means you can't pay somebody else.
Yeah. Great point. Great point. Again, Tuesday edition BYP, the prop joining me, Rich Quinones. Check us out. Again, follow us on X social media and, of course, the YouTube channel, Rich Q. All right, we're in already week 14. The NFL season friggin' flies by. You mentioned the quarterbacks. We're seeing what's going on in New England. Pittsburgh starts the slate on Thursday night. Let's go through a couple of these games. I'm sure you kind of bookmark and you already highlighted.
Something we mentioned a few weeks ago about the quarterback for the Vikings. That he was like he's comeback player of the year.
I know that's bad job by me, man. Now he come back down to earth.
It's not just you. It's everybody was kind of enamored with man, and it's just this thing's even out.
Possible to be Russell Wilson.
No, it's Hamlin. 1,000%.
Hamlin, yeah.
Oh, it has to be Hamlin. He died on the field, and more importantly than that, more importantly, like Mike Pritchard. Yeah, remember Mike Pritchard played in the NBA, played in the NFL for a while. He's with the Colorado team, but Cordell still not. And he's on one of these stations, and I sent him a tweet. I said, "You're out of your mind. Something wrong with you." Hamlin died. Forget Hamlin dying. The NFL changed the whole playoff structure. He's winning the award. He's only on the roster. Now, where it gets tricky is, I said he could come back next year and really be a player.
And
they won't love him. And then, what if he turns out has like 3 or 4 interceptions and he could win it again? So, Russell Wilson, get out of here. Get out of here. I said, I'll take any action and the quarterback for the Vikings. Yeah, he could be a player. This is the guy that fumbled. He put Jacksonville in the playoffs.
Listen, I know he came back down to earth, man, but the guy.
You can't even criticize. You can't even criticize Cleveland's GM for dumping him for a 5th or 6th round pick or whatever it was, because at the time he was the guy who, if he doesn't see somebody open, he runs. It worked a couple of years. Defensive coordinators are gonna you give defensive coordinators in this league. Now, all of them aren't that bright, but you give some of these guys a few weeks and they're gonna look at the film and look at the film and look at the film and like, all right, guess what? If he beats us on a 50-yard strike down the middle, we're going to lose. Let's not have this guy out athletic us running around. And that's what Peyton did. That's what Denver did. That's what Denver did. They kind of held him in check, and then, and he ends up. It's not that he's bad. He's a serviceable guy. He's a great athlete, but he's not the best. He's not the best guy to ever come into this league. I think everybody got a little overly. The league evens out. Things even out. The market evens out. he evens out. And with that being said, I do like the Vikings this week to win it in Vegas. I already bet them. You're going to get a 3. If you can get a slightly juiced 3 still, maybe 3 minus 105. You just lay the 3. I think the Vikings, and not even because of their quarterback. I think the Vikings are still hanging around.
Yep.
They're sniffing the playoffs. I don't think they're going to make it because they have to play 2 against the Lions. But you never know. And let's put it this way: if they lose this, they can't sniff it.
Right.
I don't like must-win games, but I think the Vikings are better. I think the Raiders are done. They had their little cup of coffee hanging around, and again, they played well against Dolphins.
Yep.
Good moral victory for them, or whatever you want to call it. They're done. So I bet them. I did bet the Rams. The opening line for the Rams was minus 7.5. It had lower limits, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with having a few hundred on the Rams. I think people are a little bit overly enamored with the Ravens. They're a good team. They have a really good defense, but the Rams are not awful. The Rams
playing much better.
They Stafford's healthy. Look at Stafford for when he's healthy. So I did bet the Rams. I'm sorry, I cut you off. You were looking at a different game. You were about to say different.
No. I was saying the Rams are playing much better. I like their offense as well. No, I like that. That's a strong play to me. Getting the 7. Absolutely. You mentioned the Vikings. I did want to ask you with Jacksonville now and Cleveland getting waxed by the Rams. We don't know what's going on with Trevor Lawrence. You have any thought on Jacksonville and the Browns?
Well, the Browns, they stuck out a 3.
Yep.
Which I think is a little over the top. There's some juice 2.5. I think the Brigada down here has 3. Flacco and the Browns are laying 3. I like Jacksonville.
Is that going on? Is that going on the thought that Lawrence does play?
No, that's it. Who's it's Beathard's great grandson or whatever.
Yeah, his great grandson.
I mean, I don't know. Mark Brunell could play for Jackson. Why don't they bring him back? Let it go Brunell versus Flacco. Just have everybody run the ball 50 times. I don't know. The Browns defense, as good as they are, they look tired last week. Full disclosure, I had the Browns. I had a really good line. I had it juiced. No, I had 4.5. I had 4.5. I thought they would hang around even with Flacco. They did not. Rams went right through them. It was good for about 3 quarters.
Right.
And then, wheels came flying off. So I don't like the game that much. I mean, the total for Jacksonville Browns. Everybody's talking about the Steelers total, Rich.
Yeah.
About it's lowest since '93, and for whatever reason, they're not looking at the Jacksonville Browns total. That's like 33. So I like 33. What am I saying? I think it's 31 now. So you have 2 totals.
Wow.
That are 30. So people are quoting the Patriots Steelers total of 30. That opened 32.5. For small limits, and then it was 31.5. So if you were going to bet the under there, it seems ridiculous. Is that 31.5 a key number? It's just throw all that out. You're really trying to be too cool if you say that. But I could see this game. I hope the game finishes 16-14 just for people thinking 31. But I'm going to throw something contrarian. I think that the Patriots team total 7.5. I think it goes over. I like over 7.5. It's juiced a lot, but I still think that it'll go over 7.5. I like Patriots on the money line.
Interesting.
I like Patriots to win the game.
Their defense is good. Their defense is not bad. It's their offense.
Exactly. 3 straight games. I was going to bring this up. I was going to do it's been a terrible year, obviously, for Belichick. And Belichick, we've talked about before, he's partly to blame. or most of the blame, because he's the GM. Their offensive side stinks. Making Matt Patricia offensive coordinator, all that BS last year. I'd never liked Bill O'Brien. Bringing him in was like, you might as well bring me in. I mean, I don't like Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien's claim to fame is that he took the Penn State job when nobody wanted it. He could only do well. If he went 2 and whatever after all that nonsense going up there. So he parlayed that. Because remember what Bill O'Brien was before that? He was at Duke.
Yep.
And go look at Duke's offense when he was there. They were atrocious. Worse than the ACC. Terrible. He takes the job. He can only look good. They win a game. They win the bowl game. He parlays that in the Texans. Yep. Then he decimates the Texans, clowning these guys out like crazy. They have the 1 year where he's got one play really to beat his mentor, and they punt up. I'm sorry, they kick a cheesy field goal against Brady. That's Bill Brady's career.
Yeah.
That's O'Brien's career in a nutshell. I don't even want to see Bill O'Brien. And he's a fake tough guy. Like he screams at people and all that bullshit. Like who cares? Anybody can scream at you think you're the first guy that screamed at Mac Jones? He played for Saban.
Right.
Screaming at him ain't gonna do nothing. Saban's probably making him stand on his head in the shed somewhere. Like get out with these guys. But with that being said, Belichick has to be blamed for that, for not bringing it. And he did lose McDaniels. I get it. Okay. But his defense is good. The first team since the 30s or the 20s or whatever, 3 games, less than 10 points, and they lost all 3.
Yep.
He's going to stick Trubisky in a trash can this week. If Trubisky, here's a prop, if you can find it. Will Trubisky throw a pick 6? If you can get, I'll find out what the good number is on that. But basically, if you can get anything on that, take it. I think he's going to 100% go over in interceptions. He's going to go over in turnovers. He's going to throw an interception in his own red zone. He's going to do a bunch of stupid stuff. And I wish I would pay good money to go to the wing right now just to hang in their defensive meetings. Because there's guys that are just like, rules falling out of their mouth. And I get it. You're 2-10. This is a game that you take all your frustrations
out on Pittsburgh.
And you can sit and say, if I'm the coach, I'm like, listen, whatever's happened this year, let's go out and absolutely destroy this offense. Let's make it look good. Let's get it done. Now, with that being said, could New England lose 6-3? Maybe. But I think what's more likely is that the Patriots, I actually got 220 on the money line. It went down to 215. It's probably much lower now because there's people that are smarter than me or as smart as me have already hit New England. It's 5 a few places. What did I get now? I got 223 for some limits. It's down to 190 some places. If you're in Vegas, Circa has plus 210. I think it's a live bet. I don't know why anybody in the world, they're seeing a different thing than I am with the Steelers. I said when the Steelers were 7-3,
their offense.
I said I bet they're under. I bet they're not going to make the playoffs. They had a few calls go 100% their way.
Green Bay game was one of them.
How about against the Rams? He's 4 feet. He's 4 feet.
Yep.
Not even close to the first.
Yep.
Now there's nothing you can't quantify or you can't hang your hat on, those calls are going to come back. That's not what I meant. I just meant they're not a good team. And when you have this many games, that comes out. Mm-hmm. And they did play a good game against Cincinnati, a game I thought that they would lose, but I had moneyline Arizona. There's guys on Arizona's staff that wouldn't have had Arizona moneyline this week. So I played Arizona's moneyline. And it was more of a play against the Steelers. They had no business laying 6, 6.5, whatever. As you get late in this year, I've seen this enough where I talked about it before. you know, Carolina is really, really, really bad, and they don't score. The Jets offense is really, really, really bad. They don't score. You kind of don't want those teams. You don't want to play with those teams. If you can't score, it's tough to win. It seems like a cliche, but it's true. It just so a lot of what I do is sometimes the bets you don't make are good. So you just throw those teams in the trash. You could even do it with the Giants, but I give Tommy Collins a little bit of a shot because we don't know if they're good or bad. Now, all we heard is, "Oh, look how bad they are. Look what happened against Dallas." Well, Dallas is a good team.
Yeah.
What happens when they play a team that's not good? Well, we saw it. They beat the Command Skins. They beat whoever it was they did on the bye. They can beat Green Bay. Who said Green Bay is good? Why? Because they beat Kansas City at home late in the year. They played a good game. Jordan Love has figured it out. Has he?
Or is this the Giants are getting almost a touchdown at home.
It's 6.5. What worries me is that they don't score enough, but they don't qualify for my criteria as being dog poop. Carolina's dog poop.
Right.
Jets.
It could be a 17-6 Green Bay win because the Giants.
I could see the Giants winning the game. If it's rainy and cold, and windy,
defenses play better. Defenses play better, but you also don't know if they're going to go with Cutlets or Taylor. If the head coach is smart, you give this kid DeVito time, let him go out there. If he doesn't play well, then if you think the game's in doubt or you want to win it, you go back to Taylor.
I like it that they don't know yet. The Packers are going to run film on both, but they got miles of film on Tyrod Taylor.
Of course.
But what if Cutlets gets in there? It's just good. I've said it before, you're going to get in trouble if you lay more than 3 in the NFL with teams that are average. And I don't want to hear Green Bay as being anything but, Jordan Love's figured it out. There's people dumping on the Lions. The Lions beat KC,
right?
And they were up 27-3 in Lambeau. That doesn't count. That happened last year. No, it didn't happen September.
Yep. And they should have ransacked the Saints.
Because they laid an egg on Thanksgiving. They lost it. Wait a minute. They split in the years, but both of them were when they were both good, when they were both bad. It's in division games are always tough. Remember, go back and look when the Bears were phenomenal. They didn't go and house some of these teams on the road. They didn't go into Lambeau and win 900-0. So the point being, it's tough to win on the road in the NFL. It's tough to cover in the road in the NFL. It's even tougher to play more than 3.5. You better have an elite. You just saw it with KC. You better have everything clicking. Miami, who else is good? San Fran can do it. But you see what Miami did to the Command Skin. It just Dallas did to Carolina. Those are the kinds of teams historically that can do that. The hard part is figuring out who's elite and who's a pretender. And if you have the right criteria, I just know that this league, especially this year, it's a league of parity.
Right.
You have a few at the very top, you have a few at the very bottom. Everybody else is in the middle, and be very careful about who you're laying, jack against. Vikings is a good example. The game opened 2.5. It's 3. They opened this game up at 5. I'm not playing this game. It's only 2 points. It matters. That matters. What the market's saying is this is a good team that can go in. Not a lot of things. No. What this is saying is it's close. Atlanta was a good example against the Jets. That line was 1.5, 2. If you noticed, it did not budge.
Yeah, it didn't move at all.
Nobody played it. Smart people didn't play it. Masses didn't play it. It didn't budge. People ignored the game. And some smarter people played Atlanta, but by a little. It wasn't like they hammered it.
Yeah.
And I liked Atlanta in the game simply because it was the Jets. But I didn't go crazy with it because Jets kind of fit into the criteria of a teaser. It was a low total. And look what happened. You get both of them if you want to be frisky. You got both. So, I mean, who else is doing that this week? You have a couple insanely high lines. Miami.
Yep.
Oh, San Fran's high. Wow. When that first came out, I mean, I thought that would be 8. I can't remember what the look ahead line was. I think it was like 7.5 or something. So it's 10.5.
Miami 14 over Tennessee.
Well, that's interesting because
Tennessee bunch of injuries.
Years ago, you'd get a really good 7 first half line there. Now, no such luck. You got to lay 7.5, which is a big deal in the first half. But I think a first half play there is good. I got 7.5 minus 105. I think it's a good play because I do think it could close 8.5. So that's another play I played to play Miami in the first half. Last week's first halves, I lose Dallas. Incredibly, I laid 6 and they give up. It was 20-14, and they give up. Whatever. It's just whatever. It's gonna happen. You gotta just laugh. And then I got like a weird 4.5, and they got lucky to cover that in the second half. So I covered that. I had Jacksonville last night, which a great line. I had 4.5 in the first half. I don't get that. They're up 14-7. But that went as high as 6. So you get closing line value, you got to be happy, and it's all going to come out. But I hit all my other ones, including Miami. Miami was a strong one. A couple of people had sent me a message, "Hey, who do you like?" I said, "Play Miami first half." You only laying 6. Went to 6.5, and it was a laugher. And you're going to get a couple of these. I think this will be similar. I have another first half that I played. Oh, San Fran. I played San Fran first half also. Although it's not as strong as Miami's. But I do like it. I think they'll come out. They'll run the ball. They'll score. But Seattle's not crap. They can score as they showed me with the Dallas first half. They can score. So it's not as big a play as the Miami Titans game. I think Titans are going to have a problem hanging around Miami, but I could also see them covering in the game. It's 14. This game closed 15. I could see Miami coasting and thinking big picture, which is something we talked about before. You want to come out, you want to play serious, you want to be sharp. You want to get to about the fourth quarter. Again, I don't want to say you're coasting, but you want to make sure that you're running some vanilla plays. Yep. You're not getting Tyreek Hill hurt. You're not. Right. You want to win the game, right? And then, of course, you're going to bring up. There's 3 games that are obviously very important. We talked about the Cutlets game only because Green Bay's in the running for the playoffs. I think they have a tougher spot than the Vikings, but then move on to the sexier games, the meatier games. Is Detroit going into Chicago? And I think this is the first game. The Lions have played outside in a while. But it's not like Goff hasn't played outside. It's not like the Bears haven't played outside. I mean, Bears, not the team. The Lions as a team. Is it tougher to pass in Chicago than it is in the Dome? Of course. But I think ultimately the Lions are a better team. Where's everybody getting that the defense stinks for the Lions? Why? Because I get it. They had a big game against Love, but the Chargers in good weather at home,
38 points.
But Chargers when they're clicking are clicking. Chargers have played poorly on the road.
Yeah. Or it just shows you they can win high scoring games. That's all. I mean,
I think the Lions can adapt. I don't look too much into that. Sure, their total yards and yards per play went up. But the Bears aren't the Chargers. I mean, yeah, again, recency bias. The Bears really could have won that game in Detroit. But I look at this, I'll give you a boxing analogy. This reminds me of Arguello Pryor. Everybody's like, oh, wait till Pryor, wait till Arguello comes out the second time, and it's like, the Billy Conn thing. Right? Oh, he almost beat Lewis. He can do it again. Well, not necessarily.
Right.
Maybe the better guy whoops you way. Maybe you woke up the better team, and it's usually the first narrative is not the best one. I do think that the Bears do some things that can give the Lions trouble. The line is down to a juice 3. The total's all the way down. I like the under, but I think Campbell and those guys, they can win a 17-6 game easily. They can win a 17-13. I think that thinking that just because of what happened before, and they were down 14-7, do I have a bias with the Lions? I don't know. I don't think so. I had we're in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I think it's completely unbiased to look at the Lions. And I look at the Lions, and Goff has been there. All people remember about Goff is, he played poorly in the Super Bowl. Well, a lot of people play badly against Belichick.
Yeah, that was an ugly game.
But you know what? He had a great year.
Yes, he did.
He had a great year, a couple of great years under McVay. And then somebody looked at it and said, I think we can get a better player. Okay. Look what he's done with the line. People thought they were sending him to Siberia. Campbell and those guys come all the way back. They have a good team. Are they struggling a little bit offensively? Now, somebody's supposed to be out on their line. I don't look at the injury report until Friday. I think these guys lie until Friday anyway. So I really don't go overly with that. But to that point, I did not overly bet the Lions yet, because this line could actually come down even further, a little bit, but nothing special. If it goes to a normally juice 3, I'll still like the Lions.
No.
What do you think about it?
I listen. I'm kind of on the same boat as you. I'm going to give them a little more of a glossing in another day, but I wanted to, because I know I only got you. We're tight on time. I want to get into this Eagles and this Cowboys again. The prop joined us from our good friends over at Played Against Sports. Remember, as we mentioned, if you walk in there, they'll give you cash. They'll take whatever you got, right? But if you get that store credit, if you get 50 to trade in for store credit, they're going to give you an additional 30%. Make sure you mention Back Your Play BYP. We'll get into his Charity Bowl tout to close things out in a moment. But let's wrap it up. Cowboys, Eagles obviously getting smoked and train wrecked by the 49ers. I mean, it's so funny. I'm hearing people sitting there say, well, that was a bad play if you took the 49ers. Yeah, whatever. After the fact, okay. Dallas now laying 3.5 at home, the revenge factor. This is a huge game for seeding, for NFC East, for home field advantage. Do the Eagles respond in Big D in this game, Sunday Night Football? You got the national window on NBC, or do you like the Cowboys and that offense? Because we're seeing that defense of the Eagles is flawed, man. You can run on them and you can throw on them. So what's your thoughts on this game?
Well, I'm not going to be overly pat myself on the back, but I because I did have the Browns last week, and I did have Jacksonville first half.
That's right.
Last night.
Fair point.
So, but I did play San Fran minus the 2.5 when it first came out. And then when it stuck on 3, it was a juice 3. I said, forget that 3. I played an alt line of minus 6.5. And I took a shot, and I said, I just have a feeling if San Fran wins this, they win it. They will not let up. And that's kind of what happened.
100%.
And it's really tough to quantify. I couldn't just say it as a narrative. So, well, once the game was over, some of these guys, maybe they've had, Dallas undermine. I don't want to get hurt. I don't know what it was, but more was San Fran wanted to show we are really good. What happened last year, especially Debo Samuels and these guys who really, really thought that was going to be a closer game last year, and I really felt that the Eagles overly celebrated. It wasn't really this. It was some of the Eagles. It was mostly the Eagles fans. The Eagles fans spiked the ball more than anybody I can ever remember. And it's like they never learn a lesson. You already saw it on Twitter. This game's no big deal. Well, wait a minute. Was it a statement game? If you get crushed, now it doesn't matter. So this kind of rubs a lot of people the wrong way. I try to stay even, try to look at these things really unbiased. The look headline was Dallas 3 from last week. You could have bet the 3. It opened 3 for a second. It went to 3.5. There's juice 3s out there. I think Circa Vegas has a juice 3. Juice 3 and a 3.5 even. It's like, people are afraid of. I think you skip the whole thing. You try to get the best money line. I think this is a bad game for the Eagles. The lowest money line I saw 174 out there. If you don't get cut off at a couple of places, I think you play the money line. I think it's a bad game for the Eagles, and here's why. We spoke off air. Eagles could lose here 34-30, 34-27, 34-0. Well, they'll never not score nothing. They can lose 34-13. Doesn't matter. They win the remaining games, they win the East.
Right.
And I don't know if coaches will say that. It's one game at a time. Let's focus on Dallas. But there's not a shot that some of this, that Howie Roseman and Lurie and these guys, and even Sirianni, and even Hurts himself, and even some of the smarter guys on defense, they know that. I don't like that attitude, but it happens in the NFL. It happens. You don't overly emphasize a loss. If we do what we have to do, we win the East kind of thing. With that being said, I think the Cowboys win. I can see them getting out big early, and then the Eagles making a little bit of a push and still not covering. So I think if you want to mess around and play Dallas -6.5, get some juice back. I think that's actually is not a bad play either. I don't like the Eagles in this game. Again, because they're going to promote this as all or nothing,
Of course, but it's not.
Who has the game? I don't even know. Well, whoever has it,
NBC.
Sunday Night Football. Forget. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Eagles can lose this, and I do think that they will. I do. Dallas is a good team.
Yeah,
and they're even better at home. They do a lot of things right. Their defense is good. I still worry moving forward about Prescott in a big game, throwing an interception or doing something goofy. I like how he played with a little bit of adversity last week. Seattle went through their defense. It happens. You're starting to see the playoff scenarios coming out. Mm-hmm. If Dallas does not win the East, where do they set up? They set up as the 5th seed. Will they play at San Fran? Will they play at Detroit? They do not. I don't care what they're saying. They do not want to play at San Fran at that wild card game. That is not the game they want. They want to play at Detroit, and we'll see. We'll see that New Year's Eve game.
Yeah, how it plays.
I actually am hoping now a little bit where the scenario where Dallas can maybe beat Detroit in that game. You might get a favorable number in the playoff game, and then you can hit Detroit. Trying to look a little bit farther in advance, Eagles are going to count Lions coming to Philly as an automatic win. Mm-hmm. And if it's more than 3, we'll talk about.
All right.
how much I'll have on that. And then the last game is the Bills Chiefs.
Yeah.
It's a game. You know, the Chiefs win. It kills Buffalo.
Right.
It helps out. It helps out everybody from the Chargers to the Browns. It helps everybody out. But with that being said, I'm not going to focus on that last game. I think the Bills are still good enough to make the playoffs, and they're good enough to be in the playoffs and create some problems for everybody. And how interesting is it going to be if the Bills win that game?
Back, everyone jumping on the.
Well, one thing, real fast. The Jacksonville getting hurt. I have a future of the Colts winning the division, so it was dead. I said, I'm looking at it a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, oh, what a stupid play.
Now you are alive.
That shows you the uncertainty of this league, where that absolutely crappy, lousy bet is live in December.
That's a smart play, man. Hey, you backed your play on that one. All right, real quick.
Okay. Give the email for the Bowls. I'm working on the Bowls now.
Yeah.
But basically, what it'll be, I raise money for local organizations, especially football organizations. It's really tough for some of the youth teams that get from some of the organizations don't provide helmets and cleats, and it seems like for months ahead of time in August, even the spring leagues, I'm finding shoulder pads for people and cleats and helmets and whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I'm trying to help out a couple local high schools and then a couple local youth organizations. And I get a lot of people ask me about bowls. And if you followed me for the last whatever amount of years, my bowl season, even before the opt-outs, I don't want to jinx it, but they've always been really good. You know, I'm not going to say how I make the sausage, but it was always pretty good. And I think the worst I've done is when I couldn't quantify the opt-outs. Now they're announcing them. Like USC's quarterback's not going to play. We'll find out who's not going to play with Georgia. The first year when people were opting out, it was a tougher year for me. I had to cancel a bunch of games. But the worst I've ever done is, you didn't lose. And the best I've done was, I've had a couple of years where I won all of them. And it's not an anomaly. I think I have a really good take on some of the matchups. There's other people out in this environment that have similar takes. I think the goal is to get in early and try to get some favorable lines. There's a lot of money lines I'll play. There's a few totals I'll play. And I get a lot of people that ask me, so I'm not even going to tie it to how much. You only give $10 if buy somebody cleats. I don't know, but you email me. I'll let you know who to make the checks to. It won't even be to me. It'll be, and I'm cynical about charities unless it goes right to people. But believe me, I'll have the pictures that'll help people out and whatever you want to give. And then maybe we'll win. Maybe we'll have a couple really good plays, and then we'll talk more about the bowl the end of the week or maybe next week.
And that's everyone can email. We'll talk about it. I'll talk about it later in the week as well with On Q and BYP. Professor Shine at gmail.com. Give them a follow too on social media. And if you guys want to hit him up on Twitter, you can certainly do it like that as well. He's always kind enough to join us on X at Professor Shine from our good friends over at Played Against Sports. My friend, have a good week. Maybe we'll double dip later in the week, get into a little more of these bowl games as well. And then before we blink, you got the playoffs, and we'll get into a little more of college basketball. But always appreciate you jumping on BYP, pal.
Take care. Good luck.
Thank you. You too.